What would you say is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in the world?
It's easy to get rich, and it's not easy. It's ball busting. It takes a lot of human sacrifice, but you've got to really want it. I mean, you have to want it more than the air that you breathe.
Welcome, Dan Pena. For anyone not familiar with Dan is known as the $1 trillion man, the $50 billion man. He's a high-performance business success coach. He coaches millionaires. He coaches even billionaires. He's a financial magician, and he's known as one of the greatest of all time in the creation of wealth.
He's also worth over $400 million. And aside from this, he also runs QLA, also known as the Quantum Leap Advantage, where he teaches his secret to success.
And he lives in a castle, which is pretty cool.
I think the largest in Ireland.
If you had to pay for this castle and 156 manicured acres, you wouldn't be so talk so highly of it.
Oh, okay. That's expensive, eh?
Yep.
So Dan, we created 2 videos a few years ago after being inspired by your content, and they've been viewed over 12 million times now, which is just crazy in 2 years. So I think the first thing that the audience is probably wondering is, what do you mean by you're the $1 trillion man or the $50 billion man?
When I started, I gave my first seminar in May of 1993. I had a under the skin goal, as I call them, that I wanted to create $1 trillion with, I didn't call you meatheads then, with kids, and I call everybody kids because I'm either old enough to be, now I am, grandfather or your father, with devotees. I thought as soon as humanly possible. I thought it wouldn't take me 25 years, believe me. I thought if I had thought it was going to take 25 years, I probably wouldn't have started. And by create wealth, I mean that equity, like if you start with 0 and you wind up selling your business for 100 million, that's 100 million. If you start with 5 million and you sell your business for $1 billion, that's 995 million. So it's the equity or the real number in Wall Street or in financial terms. It's called the enterprise value. And so I wanted to create $1 trillion. Along the way, the first few 100 million was easy, and as my title of my book, Your First 100 Million, but then it got tough, and so for a number of years I experimented with different models, and what I didn't understand is hardly anybody had any real self-esteem. I didn't understand that. That was a foreign concept to me, because I did, and I didn't understand or realize how much self-esteem I had, but I knew I had self-esteem. So after about 10 or 15 years, the kids, my devotees, if you will, started putting together the numbers of the people that came to the seminar and that would contact me on YouTube, etc. And so we surpassed like 50 billion easily. And the truth of it is, we had one mentee who created 56 billion. And so I stayed at 50 billion for years and years and years, because if I ever was challenged or I had to go to court or anything like that, because a lot of the gurus, as you probably are well aware, fudge their numbers, and they fudge their success, and they blow it up to make themselves look better to the people they're selling stuff to. So we stayed at 50 billion forever and ever and ever. Then I had a mentee who did a $500 billion deal a few years ago. Neom, the city of the next century, that's in Saudi Arabia. It's a joint venture between Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and a little piece of it is Egypt. And I knew that we had several hundred other billions, so I said, well, let's put all the numbers together, and I know I've gone over $1 trillion. But the real value of the kids is we created 1 million millionaires, and that's $1 trillion. So we have these few people that are done extraordinary, just as icing on the cake. Now, if you believe the people that pontificate about people like myself and some of the other guys, I've really created a lot more than $1 trillion, but my moniker now is $1 trillion man, but it's based on enterprise value, real net worth, not smoke and mirrors.
So let's dive into your story a bit more. Tell us about East LA.
Well, you kids don't look like you've been come from East LA, but when I was there as an adolescent, it was almost all Mexican, not 100%, but almost 100%. And in fact, I only had one white neighbor that I can remember as a little kid. And my father was a policeman. My mom was a housewife. My mother came to the United States. She crossed the Rio Grande River in 1924 as an illegal alien with her mother. We lived almost right where downtown Los Angeles is. And my dad was a cop, and so it was easy for him to get to work. I got in a lot of trouble. I've done some awful things while I was a little kid, especially. Finally, they threw me out of the school district for dropping an aquarium on my teacher, on my fifth grade teacher, from the second story. And it's only by the grace of God I didn't kill him. I dislocated his shoulder because he moved. They finally threw me out of the school district. So we had to move to another school district. And my mother thought that I would be better there because she thought it was the environment. She didn't understand it was me. So then when we moved to the Valley, which is called the San Fernando Valley, which has become infamous now, the San Fernando Valley was the home porn. So they made the first porn movies there. And so I went there, and I got in a lot of trouble. I was arrested 5 times, and all my arrests were alcohol related. And I got, and then finally, I volunteered for the draft in 1966, more or less at the height of the Vietnam War. And the Army made a man out of me. I became an officer, and the rest is really history. And it was the first high performance thing I ever did. I didn't understand, other than I had a father who looked like a superhero, alpha male role model. Other than that, he was my benchmark. He was very athletic. He was an all-American athlete in high school, and I could barely chew gum and walk at the same time. I was very uncoordinated. So my aggression I took out on other people. I could get in fights real well. I've always been a big kid, and so but I went off in the Army. The first high performance thing I did was become an officer, and I got out of the military quite by accident. I was going to stay in the military because it was perfect for me. It was almost impossible for me to get in trouble. And they gave you crazy things to do, which I enjoyed. And then one day, I got a special award. One day I'm sitting in the officers club, and a 2-star general said, "Danny, why don't you buy the drinks for all of us?" And I said, I bought the drinks. You don't ask a 2-star general why. But then afterwards, we had a few drinks. I said, but why should I buy the drinks? And he says, because you won that award a few weeks ago. And I said, General, that was a $50 war bond. That's really no money. And then he said, the magic words that changed my life. Danny, a young man like you could get rich in the civilian world. And I swear to you, a light bulb went off over my head. I'd never thought of rich Danny Pena in the same sentence. And I applied to get out of the Army, and I was out of the Army in 6 months. So I went from a regular Army officer to out, and I went back to school. And I found it very simple, very easy, because the kids in college, even then, back in the early 70s, that was the beginning of the Snowflake movement. The beginning of the Snowflake movement, 50 years ago.
Wow.
And I basically tore the financial world up.
Wow.
It was very simple for me. And I turned $820 into $450 million in 7 years. It wasn't that hard for me.
Yeah. Back when you were in East LA, what I guess you talk about your dad once in a while, and you talk about being around gangs. What did you learn from gangs, from your dad, from you didn't grow up with wealth?
Well, I wasn't in a gang because my dad forbade me from being in a gang, but I was around that. And as I often say, it's almost impossible to break the poverty environment from generation to generation, because you see your parents in gangs, poor. You see your grandparents in gangs, poor. So what's left for you? To be in a gang and poor. And most of the kids join gangs out of self-defense. If you're not a part of a gang, even at a very young age, you stand to get the crap beat out of you if you're not in a gang. And so, but on the one hand, I'm seeing this. On the other hand, my dad's telling me, if you join a gang, you're going to wish that you were dead, because I'm going to beat you worse than they're going to beat you. And so that was the balancing act. And my dad was in our house almost every night. So whereas I only had to face the gang when I was outside. So it was easy, it was an easy decision for me to make that, and I knew my dad would do it because I know how he felt about drugs, etc. What he didn't instill in me was not to drink, because that was not the choice, the drug of choice. That was the second drug of choice. The first drug of choice was actual drugs. So I used to drink a lot, even in as a kid, and i.e. all my jail time. I never went to prison, but I certainly went to jail a lot, and it was because I bought alcohol as a minor, did crazy things as a minor under the influence of alcohol, and so. But it's a tough environment to get away from. I mean, we don't do what our parents tell us to do. We do what we see our parents do. And in my case, my dad was a straight arrow, former World War II and Korean War hero, and so that environment stuck with me. And it's one of the reasons I volunteered to go in the military, because my dad had. And so that initially probably saved my life. But becoming an officer after being a screw up for the first 20 years of my life was meaningful.
Yeah. So after the military, lots of people go to the military. You got your degree. Lots of people get their degree, just like millions of people getting their degrees. What happened then? How did you go from there?
Well, the only reason I went back to university is because nobody on my mother's family had ever graduated from college. I certainly didn't need a university degree. I tell university students that all the time. But I went back to, mama's guilt. She put guilt on me, and at that time I was close to my mother until she passed. But so I went back to school, and I found school. I graduated with almost I had to make up a 4-year education in 2.5 years, and I almost got straight A's because it was easy. It was easy. I didn't realize how bright I really was till I got in the military. Because in grammar school in East LA, they used to stand me in a corner with a dunce cap. I don't think they can do that anymore. Maybe they can. I can't imagine they do that in Canada. But anyway, and if I was bad, they put me in a corner. Then they put me in a closet, and they keep me in the closet until my mother or my grandmother came to pick me up, because I was being thrown out of school that day. And I pissed my pants. I shit my pants in that closet. It's humiliating. And just imagine if that happened today. Somebody with an iPhone. I mean, it would go viral on CNN. And so, but my father told me, sticks and stones can break your bones, Dan, but words can never hurt you. And of course, the society is flipped the other way now. Now words can hurt people, and nobody hits anybody with sticks and stones. When I went to school, getting back to your original question, when I went to school, I found it very easy. I went to graduate school. I applied for law school, got a scholarship to go to law school. I was 3 units short of my master's degree, which I'm still 3 units short of my master's degree. And I got a job during graduate school because I found graduate school very easy. And I was selling real estate. And this is 1971. I started making 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month, 40 grand a month, $50,000 a month. So I skipped law school. I dropped out of graduate school. And I bought my first Rolls Royce when I was 24 and a half. And I'm still driving Rolls Royces. And I realized that even though my environment, my socioeconomic milieu, didn't know what $1 million was, I felt very comfortable in that environment, and I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. So the story goes, you only had $820. Is that right? When you graduated
Correct.
school. So then you started making 10,000, 20,000 a month. And was that when you founded your company, or was that before Great Western?
No. I lost all that money.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to mislead. I because that would have meant I had money when I started the company, but I didn't. I lost all that money on rock and roll and women. I didn't do drugs, but it was sex and rock and roll. And when you're making that kind of money and you're in your mid-20s, and I won't say that women are shallow, but I had 30 girlfriends, maybe more. They were all drained me of all my money. Now I say slightly facetiously, I got laid more than the Beatles, but that's not much of an exaggeration. I mean, it's just the opposite of now.
Wow.
So I lost all that money, and I went to work for a investment banking client at Bear Stearns, because I was at Bear Stearns, and I became president of a subsidiary in less than a couple years. And then I had a disagreement with the board, and I got fired in January 1982, and I had only $820. I just bought a big house because I was projecting, like everybody does, that if I make this much money for this period of time, I can afford this big house. I got fired, and so when I started Great Western, it was $820, and it was January the 7th, 1982.
Wow. And then how do you grow a business to $500 million? Like, I mean, you make it sound easy, but
with great,
yeah.
No, with great difficulty. And this is before the internet. This is not internet money. This is, bricks and mortar money. Yeah. I looked for, the first thing I did is I looked for anomalies in the federal bidding process for federal products. And because I was in investment banking, I was involved in oil and gas. I saw there was the refineries across the United States were only 60% being used. And yet there was a jet fuel shortage with the U.S. Air Force. Now that doesn't make sense. There's no oil and gas in the U.S. Air Force. They were highly short, and yet the refineries in America were only being 60% used. So I put two and two together. I connected the dots, and I bid on federal contracts. And the first year in business, I did $50,540,000 in business with one employee, me. And then when I had that money, or a portion of that money, the profit part of that money, I went out and I sought oil and gas partners, drilling for oil and gas, I continued to connect the dots, and I have a pretty good nose for the petroleum business. If you followed me at all, last year I picked negative oil, that oil was going to go negative. It went negative $37 a barrel for the first time in the history of the oil and gas business. So I have a pretty good nose for that. I understand the logistics better than most, and so I continue to build. I had allegedly, arguably, ostensibly, the greatest financial transaction of the 80s, where I took an option. In other words, you understand buying an option on a house. You're going to buy an option on the house, and you're going to fulfill that option 6 months or 12 months down the line. Well, I bought an option on oil and gas properties for $60,000, and I turned it into $160 million in 99 days. I took it public. No one had ever taken an option public in the history of finance on the planet, and I took an option public on the London Stock Exchange, which is the equivalent of the New York Stock Exchange, but in London. And from there, I was overnight success. It's very reminiscent now. I'll be 76 in a few days. I'm an overnight success after 50 years in business. The people like you want to talk to me, and 25 years ago, I couldn't buy an interview. And so I took it public, and I grew the company, up to about 500 million, excuse me. Then the shareholders threw me out. They threw me out with a lot of money. So I didn't cry. Don't feel sorry for me. I know you don't, but anyway, don't feel sorry for me. I decided I wanted to do something else because I already was ostensibly pretty rich. And I tried to teach university for a year. I found that very unfulfilling. 93, 94, I taught an honors class. And then one of my friends, a former officer during the Vietnam era, along with me, a Marine officer, he said, Dan, why don't you coach? I said, I didn't really understand it. So I took a year off, and I went around and listened to everybody, from Tony Robbins to Jay Abraham to you name it. I went to the seminars. I paid to go to the seminars. And I realized that most of the guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. And it was easy, so I thought I'd spend only 5 years doing it. That's 23 years ago, 5 years. And here I am. I thought that I would be able to build self-esteem, because that's the real, it's the foundation of all wealth, unless you inherit it. It's self-esteem. Wow. And most kids didn't have it even then, and less kids have it now. Which is a sad commentary on where we are in society.
So how can millennials, how can they do it today? You know, oil's low, like oil price isn't great.
No. Well, now, I mean, you've got Zuckerberg, and you've got all kinds of kids that are making money. I mean, the internet is the new oil. Bitcoin, which I'm not a proponent of, and there's a lot of other vehicles than there was 40 years ago when I did it. But I believe that the kids that have believe in themselves, that's what it starts with. We're the average of 5 people we hang around with. You know, I'm not, let's just take the young lady on your right. I'm not going to ask her, but 5 people, and she can think who those 5 people are. Self-esteem is built the first 7 or 8 years of life. You can think back, who are you involved with the first 7 or 8 years of life? Normally it's a mom, maybe a dad if he's around, an older sibling, a grandparent. Well, what the hell do they know about building self-esteem? Mostly nothing. Okay? Then you go out, and I would bet that, not even knowing who she is, that she has a lot of friends, or maybe a few friends, but they're more or less think like she does. Well, that's not how you grow. You grow by being around people that don't think like you. I mean, good things, not bad things, not robbing banks and stuff like that. And that's not the pattern. Unless you were blessed to be Andrew Agassi or Steffi Graf's child, both world-class athletes, both gold medalists at the Olympics, both super fit. The chances are, both very goal-oriented, the chances are you don't know anything about goals. If they are, you know something, they're probably low goals. You've never thought about being a billionaire. You can't become a billionaire unless you think about it. Being a millionaire today is by accident because, houses, in at least in America, you can be a millionaire just owning a house. And so what we teach the kids is that they have to reframe what they want out of life. Now, this current generation, getting back to your question, how do the millennials make money? Okay, I haven't forgot the question. But without some foundation, my answer doesn't make sense. For some of your listeners, my answer is not going to make sense even with some foundation. But you have to want to make a ton of money. And you've heard at home, money's the root of all evil. It even says that in the Bible, I think. And so you've grown up in the environment that being rich is bad, or at least it's not enviable. I grew up not knowing what rich was, but I know none of us had enough money. I was interviewed by another newspaper recently, and they had a young lady interviewing me that explained to me, probably as well as I've ever heard, why millennials are like Bitcoin, why millennials buy these stocks that are worth nothing, why they go to Robinhood, I think it is, et cetera, et cetera. And I had never heard an answer like that. And she says, basically, we don't have any option, legal option, how to get rich. I mean, I used to give a lecture in universities, wealth, risk, reward, not. The system that was devised 70 years ago after World War II, you go to work with a company, you work 30, 40, 45 years, you get a pension, you don't get a gold watch as nice as mine, and you can live in a picket house with 2.4 dogs, 6.4 grandchildren, and hopefully your original wife. Well, that model is dead. That is impossible anymore. And on top of it, you have $150,000 to $250,000 in debt for going to school. It takes years, and she was very articulate about it. And some kids will be 45 years old and still be paying off student debt. Boy, that's a load of. And so now you found things. The young lady shaking her head, yes. Now, when something like this comes out, they want to get rich quick. Well, down deep in your soul, you know there is no get rich quick scheme that's legal. Now, did you know, now this is the UK, did you know that 21% of all the people that bought Bitcoin in the last 12 months here in the UK don't have a clue what Bitcoin is?
Yeah, I believe it.
Did you know that the average price for an order in 2019 for Bitcoin was 280 pounds, which is about $350. In 2021, the last 12 months, it's about $100 more. So they're spending $500 or less. How are you going to change your life with $500 investment? Even if Bitcoin went to $1 billion, it's not going to change many lives. So for a millennial, it sounds trite, something they believe in. If you change 1 billion lives, you'll get wealthy. What do you believe in enough to quit your job to try to change 1 billion lives? Most of the kids just want to know if they get paid twice a month.
Yeah. Dan, so why not retire at this point? Now that you've achieved massive success, you've achieved most of your lifelong goals, why not retire now?
All of them. Because, and I was going to do that a year ago, January. I had a seminar at the Heathrow Airport one day, and that was my sayonara song, sayonara event. I have not given a seminar in this century outside the castle. So I was going to give my last seminar for one day, 9 hours, and I gave, first of all the material I teach is on site free. Free. Okay? I was going to, one last try to gain as much social media exposure, and I practiced weeks my sayonara speech. And then several things happened. Number one, 2 of my all-time records were broken by one of my mentees, Marcus Bauer. Next, I became, because of London Reel, another program that, they've had like 200 million views of me doing things. Number 3, a documentary was going to be published about me. And number 4, a Los Angeles Times article was being published, and it resurrected a lot of interest, and my seminars were sold out for 2 years in advance. So a bunch of positive things happened, and Sally and I talked about it, and my wife, and she said, "What are you going to do?" I'm in great health, and I said, "Well, okay, I'll do it a few more years and see what happens." And right now, we're in discussion for a TV series and a movie where there's going to be like a Mexican Superman, which was me or is me, and the people that are being talked about to star in my movie, not my movie, other than it's me, are pretty interesting. And I can't play golf anymore very well because the only thing that's wrong with me, I have arthritis, so I can't play good golf like I used to. But 2/3 of my time is devoted to pro bono. Only 1/3 of my time I give the seminars, and I charge for the seminars, because I found out that doing it for free doesn't work. unless the kids have skin in the game, to be taught by me. But 99.9% of all the billions I've created are not people that I ever met. They're people that took the material from the website free and are doing it. So, if I died after this interview, I would assume my wife and my estate will keep up the material on site because we don't sell anything. When I decided to give all my product away about 10 years ago, I went from the most expensive product to zero. And I don't believe anybody else does that. And because I'm not trying to make money out of it, but 28 years ago when I started, I gave the seminars for free. I gave them at junior high schools. Junior high school was too young. Most of the high schools were too young. I used to fill up 800 or 900 people at the LAX airport in the hotels to give a seminar free. But the results that I got were, I charged nothing and I got nothing because the results were poor at best because they had no skin in the game. And when I stopped giving seminars around the world, and I only gave seminars here at Guthrie the last 20 years, we've created most of the $1 trillion. And I want kids to know, and your audience, I came from nothing, but I had self-esteem. You don't have to have money to make money. What you have to have is belief in yourself. The Olympics are on right now. I just saw your kid win the 200-meter gold medal. Okay. I've seen a couple others, not just Canadians. They came from nothing. Okay. You don't have to come from something, but you have to have belief in yourself. And unfortunately, getting back to your millennial question, most of millennials don't believe in themselves. They act like victims. They have the victim syndrome. And that's unfortunate. It's why programs like yours, with the greatest respect, get a lot of views. Did you realize Gallup did a poll 2 years ago? 87% of the human race is unhappy.
Wow.
87.
Wow.
Why are they unhappy?
Yeah. Why? Can you tell us?
I think I know.
Why?
Yeah, I can tell you. Because they don't have what they perceive as what they deserve. But it's not what you deserve in life, it's what you earn in life. I came from a shitty background. My dad beat me. I got in a lot of trouble. I found a way to turn it around. The kids, the millennials, give up too easily.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What advice can you give someone who is starting a company and wants to be a self-made millionaire like you?
Okay. Easy. Number one, you want to be in a business where there's big margins, big gross margins. Not, for example, retail, forget about it. Restaurants, forget about it. Things that you want big margins. Unfortunately, in my opinion, most internet businesses have big margins. That's why you flock to it, the net. You see guys like Zuckerberg, multi-billionaire, who allegedly came up with an idea, if you don't believe that he stole it from the Twinkle House twins. But you want, first of all, you want between 20 and 40% gross margins. So even if you mismanage it, you'll come out with a decent net margin. Number two, if you're not first, you have to be different. What I see kids doing is just replicating the same business idea over and over again. So if you're not first, you've got to be different. How are you different? Well, who's your market? Do you really understand who your market is? The best and easiest way to become wealthy, not overnight, but in a short period of time, is to come up with an idea that nobody's come up with. And unfortunately, most ideas have already been explored. You're not going to invent steel. You're not going to invent rubber. You're not going to invent the wheel. You're not going to, none of these things. Right now, there's more money than you'd think being made in green. I'm not a believer that the world's going to end because of global warming, but there's little niches. I would look at government contracts because, unfortunately, the Canadian government, the U.S. government, the British government, doesn't have a level of expertise that you have to bid on government contracts. So that means you, young lady, could bid on government contracts in Canada for whatever. There are 3 million contracts daily being let in the Canadian government. There's 10 million contracts daily in the US government. You just go to canadiangov.co, whatever the initials for Canada are, and you'll see. And so how can I bid, you're asking yourself, when I don't know anything? You go find a joint venture partner. A joint venture partner has no downside taking you on as a joint venture partner, minority partner, if you do all the work and they get the business. And that's how you get your foot in the door. And we've had kids that never attended the seminar that have made tens of millions off government contracts. And I mean, that's, as our daughter used to say when she was 12, that's easy peasy. But most kids want it to be handed to them on a platter. Most kids think they go to a 3-day seminar in Montreal that it's going to be the end-all, be-all, and they're going to turn that $3,000 or $1,800 into millions. And that's just not true. It's just not true. I'm the only one that posts his results because I'm told that nobody else has any results. I'm the only guy that has real billionaires that said, I owe it all to Dan. And a lot of the kids, you know, you may even be one of my devotees that made $1 billion and I don't know it.
Yeah, could be.
You may wish you were.
Yeah, we've listened to a ton of your stuff, so you know.
I know I have.
I know Alej
Good.
has. Alej's a huge fan of yours, so.
Well, Alej sounds. I almost married a girl from Cold Lake about a jillion years ago when I was in the military. Yeah. She was a French Canadian school teacher, and her name was Nancy, and a sweet girl. She's probably a little plump grandmother now. I haven't seen her in 50 years, but when I was in the military, when I thought I was going to stay in the military, and you know, I probably would have retired to Cold Lake. And for those of you who have never been to Cold Lake, you're not missing anything. Other than it's cold, you know, a good portion of the year. I remember being there and walking out of the hotel 60 below zero with no windshield factor.
Wow, absolutely.
And I think subconsciously I decided that I didn't love Nancy that much. But maybe we never got married, so we'll never know. Yeah. But I mean, government contracts is a great way for the kids to get started. Oh, but I mean, find a mentor that's rich. Mm-hmm. Find a mentor. Offer to work for them for a year for free. Okay. And I know a lot of kids that have done it that way. Yeah. I mean, we have a list of kids that want to work for me for free, and we don't need any people.
You've mentioned in the past that you're not leaving any of your fortune to your kids, and you've said,
I wonder where you're going to get around to that.
And so it's clear that 2 of them are okay with it and 1 isn't. Do they still feel that way?
Correct. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one that's even though the one that's not cool with it, I think is the way they put it. They say they're cool with it, but it's obvious they're not.
Yeah.
And it's my daughter.
Oh, Kelly?
It's my daughter who's not cool with it.
Ah.
Yep. She's not cool with it.
Yeah.
But our 2 children, we have 1 child with special needs. 2 of our children are, I mean, for millennials, for anybody, they have, and don't kill me, kids, they've got big 6-figure jobs in corporate world. They worked their butts off. They got into their schools without me giving money. They got their first jobs without me picking up a phone. I'm sure I could have got them a job in a week, but the one took 6 months and one took 9 months when they got out of graduate school. But I believe that it's the worst thing I could do for them because then there's no incentive. But they've known this since they're like 10, 12 years old. I believe that's one of the reasons they all got good grades. That's one of the reasons they went to a good undergraduate school. That's one of the reasons they went to great graduate schools. And but if they thought they were going to get something, we're assuming that I will die first and Sally will die. So after Sally dies, the trust that owns this big place which costs more a month than most millennials make a year. So that's a burden on them, unless I give them a bunch of money to pay it. But our grandkids are going to benefit, though.
Ah.
Our grandkids.
Why is that?
Yeah. So our grandkids own Google, Microsoft, Facebook. Sally even bought them a little Bitcoin a few weeks ago. Almost at the top, by the way, at 65 grand, almost at the top. She bought the grandkids some Bitcoin. But I don't believe it's good for their well-being for them to know they're going to get a lot of money.
So is all your money going to them?
And most of the money.
Is all your money going to them?
No. They're getting money, but they're not getting all our money. Most of our money is going to the Catholic Church.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. We built in Sri Lanka. We built a mission. We support schools in the Philippines. The Catholic Church has its hand so far up my butt. I'm surprised that the Pope's little beanie cap isn't showing through my lips.
Yeah.
Self-imposed, not because they forced me. It's just that, I wanted to be a priest when I was young.
Oh.
I wanted to be a priest. And the few cousins that I have that are still alive, they said, we never understood how you could possibly want to be a priest because of all the trouble I got in.
Yeah.
Maybe that was my out. But I still say my prayers every night, in that regard. And we have the only Catholic consecrated chapel in Scotland that's not in a church, which is just outside here, right here.
Wow. In previous interviews, you've mentioned that your daughter is essentially you in a skirt. And so what would you
Correct.
say is the best thing you did for her in terms of raising a high-performance daughter that's tough as nails?
I was mean to her.
You were mean to her?
I'm not proud of this, but
Okay.
yeah, I made her cry. But she didn't cry like normal kids cried over. But I knew which buttons to push when I wanted to get a result out of her, a positive result. And she doesn't give up. Either does our son. He doesn't give up. But I guess I was less mean to him. I don't guess. I know I was less mean to him. But because I believe gals have it harder. I just do. And I also believe if a gal is, and this sounds awful, if a gal is pushy enough, there are no glass ceilings. But normally girls aren't raised to be pushy. Normally, especially if you got money, you have debutante balls and that kind of thing. When Kelly turned 16, we brought her a new car. She picked the car, we bought it. Her good friend got a jet plane for her 16th birthday. Okay, so when you're in that environment, although Kelly, I don't believe, expected a plane. When Kelly turned 30, we bought her a car. But because I was tougher on her, I was more demanding because I still believe gals have it harder. Now I know because of PC and a lot of things that have happened in the news the last few years, it's swinging a little bit towards it's not as tough on girls, but they still have all that sexual harassment and all that stuff. But it's been going on for decades and decades and decades, and they may pretend that it's going away, but I don't think it is. That's not what I see. They're covering it up better now. But gals still, have it tougher, And now maybe you haven't, but that's why I was tougher on her.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And
so you have a saying.
Things that bother other young women.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say things that bother other young women don't bother Kelly as much because she's been exposed to it. She's been exposed to it.
Yeah, makes sense. So you have a saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So talk to us about that. How important is that?
It's massively important. Now, if we were in the seminar and you were sitting here and I say, okay, tell me, describe, and the paperwork they fill out, I pretty much know who they're hanging with or chilling with. Did you know that Elon Musk doesn't hang? Bill Gates doesn't chill. Yet millennials, that's what they want to do. So if you've surrounded yourself with 4, 5, or 6 people that want to hang, when you're hanging, you're not. Now I know you're supposed to be decompressing, and I understand all that. I don't believe if you have to decompress at the weekend or go on a holiday, because holidays are really important here. I mean, in the UK, you know, everybody's bitching because they lost their down payment because of COVID, etc. But if you have to go on a holiday to decompress, you got the wrong job, or you don't love what you do. I've never, you know, from 1971 to 1997, I didn't take a day off. Not a day off. And I got married on one of those days.
Wow.
Elon Musk says vacations will kill you. Because in 2013, he went to South America and he caught some voodoo something or other and almost died. Bill Gates doesn't. Have you ever seen Bill Gates at the Super Bowl or the World Series? No.
So don't take vacation.
Yet kids,
is that you're saying don't take vacations?
Yeah, I mean, no. When I turned 60, Sally convinced me to downsize. This is getting back to your question. Because and so we started selling off stuff, and we had a lot of stuff to sell off. It took us 7 years to downsize. 7 years to get rid of all the, but I mean, stuff we had. But Sally, I want to say makes me. You can't make me do anything, but I allow her to convince me to go on. I was not invented. I was introduced to cruising about 10 years ago. And the only thing I was sad about Corona is the booze cruising industry went in deficit. And Sally and I have a lot of fun on cruises. We take expensive cruises, but if you can't spend your money, I'd like to spend all our money before I die, but I don't think I know I'm not going to be able to do that. And I don't expect Sally to. But you know, if I looked at your 5 friends, each one of you, the best of you have one maybe person that's worth having as a friend. If you measure, am I growing with this person? I mean, is she detrimental to my future? And you go through the list, I mean, very few of the millennials that I know can justify the people that they hang with. 2 years ago, we were in Italy on the Orient Express, which is a very lovely, expensive train ride, like in the movies. And we stopped in a town, I think it was Turin, and we hiked this mountain to a monastery for 45 minutes, and we're sitting there waiting for a glass of wine. And Sally says, Dan, I think we're chilling. I go, what do you mean? We've waited 45 minutes for a glass of wine. And we're in the sun, I mean, and I went nuclear. I went running into the kitchen, screaming at people to get a glass of wine. But so I have chilled, not on purpose, but the service in some places is pretty piss poor. But if you know, I want to answer the 5 people that you hang around with. All the guys that you know that I grew up with, because we were poor, worked. I worked since I'm 12 years old. Howard, who's still alive, worked till since he's 12. Walt worked since he's 10. He's dead. He just died. And if your 2 best friends, all they do is work. I can't do that. I'm working this weekend. I can't do this. I'm working this weekend. My dad worked 28 years as a cop for Los Angeles Police Department. He didn't take a day off. He didn't take his statutory leave for 28 years, and when he retired after 28 years, they gave him a check for almost $60,000 because you could accumulate your sick and your days off. Now you can't do that. But I never saw him take a day off in 28 years. So, i.e.,
wow.
Wow. Let's talk about Generation Snowflake. Why do you refer to our generation as snowflakes? Why are you so tough?
Okay, are you proud of your generation?
No.
Okay, thank you. I rest my case. But I'll give you a better answer. Okay, I'll give you a better answer. Now, you seem both reasonable. Well, I don't really know, but I mean, the young lady looks probably better than she is. The young guy looks probably worse than he is. Okay? See, if you just had her or another pretty girl, and this sounds sexist, and it's meant to be sexist, you probably do better in your social media. But when you are snowflake means you melt under pressure. That's originally what it meant.
Okay.
And did you know that 71%? There was an article in Forbes, I think, a couple years ago. Let's just call it 70% of millennials cry at work once a week.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people.
It's too much.
Why? Why do they cry? Because
It's
they're
pathetic.
soft? Is that why?
Because it's too stressful. You saw that. You know about the. I'm still answering your question. Why I call you Snowflake? The company called, is it Bumblebee Cat? Bumble.
Bumble.
Yeah. I'm sure she's a good-hearted gal. She gave everybody a week off to decompress because of the stressfulness of Corona. Are you kidding me? I thought it was a joke. I thought it was fake news when I first read it. Do you think Steve Jobs ever gave anybody a week off to decompress? Do you think Bill Gates ever get? I can go on and on and on.
Oh, I believe it.
Okay, the kids melt under pressure. They do, and now in this country, if you call somebody fat, even if they are fat, it's a hate crime. I should have been in jail for 1,000 years. Hey, Lardass, get over here. Give me the paper. You're 2 days late. I've said that 500 times. And somebody said on a big podcast a couple years ago, well, I mean, I couldn't work for you. And I said, you wouldn't have the opportunity to work for me. I would never hire you.
Yeah.
We've gone, I mean, it just, you ask how do you, the millennials become multimillionaires rich, right? Well, first of all, you got to man up. Now, this sounds awful. You got to act like you had a pair. It's that simple. I mean, the millennials like the MMA on TV and, the mixed martial arts. You know why? Because they're all wusses. Why is Joe Rogan, who I've been on his show, why are guys like Joe Rogan and Navy SEAL guy, what's his name?
Jocko.
Yeah, Jocko Wacko. Why are they so admired by you kids? Because they're men. Because they got a pair. I was told recently by a person like yourself, I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's in social media. I didn't realize what a social media presence as an influencer you have, and I'm told I'm followed on TikTok. Is that right? I never heard of TikTok. I don't know what TikTok is, but I got a big following because I call them as I see them.
Yeah.
I mean, you get back to how do we get rich? Man up.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid when you know something's wrong that your supervisor or your boss is doing, tell them so. And have the balls, well, you might get fired. You either stand up for what you believe in. See, I believe that millennials don't believe in what they talk about.
Absolutely.
I mean, sexual harassment has been around for 60, 70, 80 years in the workplace, but nobody opens their mouth. Now they do, and they should.
Yeah.
Is Generation Snowflake, is that the demise of mankind, or what's the demise of
Yes,
mankind?
Sir. Well, we're at the tail end. Let me one other comment. I have 3 pet peeves. No, I have two, not regrets. My biggest regret is that I'm a combat-trained military officer who never saw combat. Okay, but my pet peeves in recent years are the global warming, which isn't global warming, the demise of mankind, and recent studies produced that if they implemented all the wish lists of all the millennials and all the scientists that say that the world's going to end because of global warming, if they implemented them January 1 this year, do you know when we would be back to pre-industrial revolution, 1865, 1870, before we caused any pollution? That's about when we caused none. Do you know how many years it would take?
No idea.
1,000.
1,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, with the millennials that are walking around embassies with placards and complaining about all the things, and that little 14-year-old snot-nosed kid from Sweden, which I've already called out her, but how many would still be doing it if they thought it was 1,000? The best case was 1,000 years off.
Wow.
Do they believe in the world that much? I know the answer.
Yeah.
When I go to universities, still answering the same question, and I was at Oxford, and I asked the kids, how many want to have kids someday? And, 3/4 of them raise their hand. Okay. How many have kids now? 20% raise their hand. Would you want your child to grow up and be like you? Now, I've spoken at 19 universities around the world. Not one hand has gone up at one school. Do they want their kids to be like them? The second question is, would you like your kids to be like your parents? They start laughing. No hands. And then what about your grandparents? 20, 30, 40 raise their hand. I heard my grandfather was a real bastard. He had some balls.
Yeah.
That all fits into the scenario. It's the end of life.
Yeah.
As we know
Your
it.
pet peeves, so obviously one of them is global warming, one of them is the demise of mankind. What does that mean, demise of mankind?
Is that this is going to sound really, but do you realize every great dynasty, or dynasty as they say in this country, since before Roman times, has started based on a civilization based on slavery. There has not been one slavery. And as they got more sophisticated, as they got more politically correct, and they did away with slavery, guess what happened to the dynasty? It went in the toilet. Great Britain used to rule 2/3 of the planet with something called gunboat diplomacy. Understand what that means? They rolled around, they had the biggest navy so they could do what they want. Okay. Now we sit around here and we bitch about Brexit. And we've got no leadership in the world. Now, I'm not suggesting we should still have slavery. Believe me. But nobody, the millennials don't understand history. The government's, the best method of crisis management, unfortunately, is the governments to lie to us. Everybody in the Canadian government, everybody in the U.S. government, everybody in the British government knew, as I said a year and a half ago, we were going to have a third and a fourth and a fifth wave. The millennials that follow me all told me I was nuts. Guess what? I'm not nuts. I'm just a better student of history than you are.
Yeah.
And my model, not selling, my model works best when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah. And what do you think about people your age who haven't accomplished as much as you? I remember your response to Joe Rogan's video when you said you're 6'1", 225, and you just killed the bear that was behind you that you displayed in the video. Would you say that the people you hang around...
Now I'm 6'1", I'm 235 now. Thanks to COVID, I've gained 10 pounds. Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think about people your age who don't take care of themselves and aren't able to do what you do?
Okay, well, taking care of yourself and being rich, as I tell the kids in the seminar that just left 3 days ago, none of my students that have created $1 trillion that I'm aware of have a six-pack. None of my students that I'm aware of have 4 to 8% body fat, which are some of the goals that the kids have. None of my students that I'm aware of that got super rich have done an Ironman. None of my students, I can go on and on and to be real physical fitness freak, and I used to be one a long time ago, is a procrastination, is you gotten tired of button heads with other people trying to get money. I had 2 periods in my 50-year career where I was tired for 3 or 4 years, 2 times. One of which I got to be a long distance runner. I ran the Boston Marathon. First marathon I ever ran was 3 hours. And then I got tired of that. And then 10, 12 years later, I got to be a big power lifter. I weighed 300 pounds, 297 to be exact. I was a lot bigger, and I took anabolic steroids, and I did all kinds of to get big. And because I got bored in between. But Bill Gates, with his pot belly, is not physically fit. Elon Musk is probably, and Jeff are probably the 2 closest to physically fit of the billionaires. And to get back to your original question, young lady, is they had choices back when they were 20, 30, 40, 50. And they made bad choices. Not all choices that are bad are financial bad choices. But, they saw in Glasgow, the average age for a Glaswegian man is 56 years old, and they die.
Wow. Because
they eat bad food, they drink. Now, I'm not going to accuse anybody from drinking, because I've drunk all my life. But my dad, who died at 91, smoked 4 to 5 packs a day for 60 years, and he drank a fifth of whiskey a day and for 66 years, and died at 91. His older brother, who never smoked a cigarette and never drank a drink, lived 30 months longer till he was 94. We all have choices. Even at 75, almost 76, you can still get more fit. But I exercise. Today, I'm not going to exercise. Today, I won't, unless I have another cup of coffee. By the way, last time I was in Canada for meetings, I had 10 or 12 meetings. I asked for coffee at all the meetings. 10 of them didn't have coffee.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's surprising, actually.
They said, how about, and then one young lady, pretty young lady said, and this is awful to say, and she looked at me and I said, Cutie, are you telling me I can't get a goddamn cup of coffee in here? Well, I can go to Starbucks for you, sir. Are you shitting? And everybody drank bottled water.
Wow.
I couldn't even get a bottle of fizzy water.
Wow.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fizzy water here, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And what are you guys drinking?
I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah,
I'm drinking
coffee over here.
Oh my God, you must, if we weren't on live camera, I'd say you must be blank.
Talking about...
But I see a little devil in her eye, even on the lens.
In my eye?
Yep. And your eyes. I see a little devil in you.
You're not wrong. You got that right.
You can swear.
It's easy.
You can swear if you want, Dan, because we'll cut up the video. But Ali listens to a lot of you, so we're used to that.
Absolutely. I would love to talk about what being tough as nails means to you. So, Dan,
okay.
I've listened to your content for years now. And there's one audio, specifically the Motiversity audio, that I've listened to nearly every day. And I'll be honest with you. In 2020, I was a snowflake. I melted under pressure, and I took every excuse that I could to get out of what my responsibilities were. But in 2021, I decided that I was tired of it, and I just wanted to make the best out of the pandemic. And so I decided to go to Mexico to keep my costs low and to invest heavily in the stock market. And then within 6 weeks of arriving, I had gotten COVID twice. Yeah, I got COVID twice. And then I was also attacked in the streets of Mexico. And I knew that it doesn't matter what happens to you. It's a matter of how you interpret what happens to you. And I even got tough as nails tattooed on my wrist as a daily reminder. And I mean, man.
Well, I'm going to send, make sure you send her, this is my famous just fucking do it bracelet that we give to the seminar kids. Now, if I was Ty Lopez, I'd be selling these, but I give them away. But I mean, when you say that you decided, you stopped being a victim, is what you decided, basically.
Absolutely.
And it's very easy to be a victim. And with the greatest respect, you're a young woman, it's easier to be a victim if you're a gal, because you haven't been raised to be tough as nails.
Absolutely.
And that's why our daughter, who is tough as nails, who's still not anywhere near as tough as me, you know, now I shouldn't brag about this, but I can make her cry in 10 seconds, you know. It doesn't take, because I know what button to push, you know. That's great. We have a lot of kids that don't wish, that they don't like where they are, not just economically, but as a human being, you know. It's one thing to wear your emotions on your sleeve, very sensitive. Like I cry easily over certain things. I cry easily at John Wayne movies. I cry, you know. I cried during the movie 300. But you come to a business deal, fuck, I'm hard. They don't want me at the meeting. You know, they want somebody else at the meeting because, you know, rumor has it, and whether it's true or not, but back in my heyday, so to speak, in the 80s, I jumped across conference tables and choked people. Now, I will neither confirm nor deny that, but I've never met anybody in 51 years of business that has ever seen, heard of somebody that jumps across the table to choke you if they're changing the deal and they're trying to cheat you. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody, you know. Al Capone may have shot you, but he didn't jump across the table to choke you. And that's part of my barrio upbringing. But I mean, it's the stuff that I put out is fact checked by Kat. My fact checker is sitting right in front of me because I like to exaggerate, like Donald Trump. I'll admit it. And I knew Mr. Trump in a different lifetime. But it's not unusual. I mean, it's the kids today. And one thing I learned, and you may take this to heart, don't waste time on things you can't change.
Absolutely.
Costa Grazos of Onassa Shipping Line told me that 40-some years ago. And I used to think it was my job to help everybody. This before I coached. You know, I had people in my staff, and 2 were dynamite, and 5 were also-rans. It's not my job to bring up an also-ran at the level I'm dealing at. If I was dealing at the junior level, then it's my job to teach them. But don't change things. Don't waste time on things you can't change. I tell people, this is personal, but if you were ever married, you had in-laws, and the chances of you changing your in-laws are 0. That's my prime example of showing, you know, don't waste time on things you can't change. My mother-in-law right now, she's got dementia, which I'm going to see the day after tomorrow. And all of a sudden, after all these decades, she likes me because she's got dementia. She doesn't remember me. We were in our car a few months ago, and I told Sally, why is Jo, her mother, why is she so goddamn nice to me now? And then it dawned on me. She's got dementia. She doesn't know who I am. Decades of hating me.
Wow.
Because that's, I mean, either that or she's had a intervention with God or something. But a lot of kids follow my stuff. But the other thing is, my stuff works. But it's painful. It can be very painful. And I can tell the way you talk about it that it was painful at some juncture.
Yeah. But, yeah, it doesn't matter what happens to you. It matters how you interpret what happens to you. And yeah, I just decided that 2020 was going to be the last year of making up excuses. And so it's an honor to be speaking with you today.
Well, it's my honor to talk to you. But that sentence that you had, when I used to get in trouble and bad things had happened to me, and he says, it's not what happens to you in life, son. It's how you interpret it. And that's what, for the most part, the generation of millennial and whatever came after millennial, because this has been on about a generation and a half, don't understand that. Now, see, I don't understand why a young woman or a young man would kill themselves over something somebody said on Facebook. That is so far out of my reasoning, but it happens. It happens. And for Facebook to say they're not culpable, I'm banned by Facebook. Facebook banned me because I called Zuckerberg a crook. on something. Well, he did. He admitted he was a crook in Mayfair magazine article in May 2019, and I must be the only guy that read it. And I put it on social media, and I was banned on Facebook about a week later.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what else? How can I help you kids?
Yeah. What is the key to your relationship with your wife, Sally? I know you've mentioned her before in previous interviews. How did you know
Yep.
that this was going to be the person that you built a life with,
Well,
as opposed to Nancy and Cold
I
Lake?
came up again. Okay. No. Cold Lake. And I ended that relationship shitty. I should have been more a man when I ended that relationship with the Cold Lake gal, but that's 50 years ago. But Sally was on the other side of the table in negotiation. She used to be with Ernst & Young in London. She's a chartered accountant with a bunch of initials beyond her name for a bunch of degrees. And she was on the other side, and she was busting my chops. She was, whereas the other guys weren't. And so I took note of it, and then I came up against her again, E&Y. Then when E&Y figured out that she had the ability to get under my skin, every time I had a goddamn meeting with Ernst & Young, she was there. So I asked her out, and she initially said no. And then in fact, I think she said no 3 times, now that I think about it. She relishes telling this story, by the way. She relishes. I mean, she glows when she tells the story. And then pretty soon she went out with me, and the rest is history. She is, I call her, she doesn't like this, she's like an old army boot. I mean, she is tough as nails, physically tough as nails. One time I had too much to drink, and we were at Trump Tower in Washington, D.C. And I bumped her by accident, and she fell down a flight of marble steps.
What?
Like in the movies, with her head hitting about every 4th step.
Oh my gosh.
She got to the bottom, and the people we were with us, oh, she's dead. And she sat up. She looked for a high heel, and she put it on, and she stood up. Now, she was bruised, and, the next day, but she's an old army boot. She's tough as nails. She just is. But she comes from poor background. She lived in a caravan, poor in Yorkshire. She used to save up a month's salary to buy, when she was a kid, whatever, sexy underwear or whatever you buy when you're a kid. And she's worked since she was a little girl. Her grandmother raised her. And her grandmother used to beat her with a wooden spoon when she did something that the grandmother didn't like. And she just workaholic. And she's my, although she doesn't hold any position in any of the companies I have, because she's a financial expert, I'll say, what do you think of all these numbers? And she'll say, recently she said, this guy's an embarrassment. The letter he wrote with his excuse, he says, this guy is an embarrassment. If why he would write this to his chairman, I have no idea. But you're right, Dan. I mean, this is the demise of the Western world as we know it. He's a snowflake personified.
Wow.
That she's saying about this guy.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, she was right. But she's not as quick to pull the trigger to fire people as I am.
Okay.
See, I know in 5 minutes whether I should fire you. Sometimes you have 2 times to make a first impression, kids. Once, when I look at you. 2, when you open your mouth. And if both of those impressions are bad, I know the chances of it getting better are next to 0. So, we made a mistake. I know I hired you. I'll give you 6 months severance pay. It's my first day at work, Mr. Pena. It's all right. Okay, I'll give you 6 weeks severance pay. Does that make you feel better?
Okay.
I've heard you have your students boxed in a ring. Is that right?
Okay, since Corona, we don't. But it was it was a big draw because for most of the kids, it was the first time they've ever been hit. We had a PhD from Saudi Arabia. In fact, his picture used to be on social media. Him swinging and missing. But the kids, like to man up. But nobody puts you in a position to man. But the girls were better fighters. Now, other than the girls that fight like this, we've had some really good boxers, gals. And now one of my gals I call Black Beauty, she's a black, very attractive, tall gal. And I know you're not supposed to call people like that, but she says, "I'm your black forever." And so, and of course, I'm surprised that CNN hasn't been down to interview me about it. But I've been calling people names like that for 50 years, not in a derogatory sense. Like we had a guy here last week, Chinaman. He was Chinese. Chinaman, what do you think? And then he goes, self-sabotaging activity. And when I get guys in the audience, what do you think, whoever? And she says, lack of self-esteem. And what do you think? Lack of self-confidence. So I get 4 or 5 people that when I go like this, lack of self-esteem. Because most of the problems that the kids have, not that just come here, it's because they have lack of self-esteem. And because they've been raised on the internet, they've been separated, and their verbal skills are crappy. And what Corona has done, it's made their verbal skills even crappier because they don't have to be face-to-face. Now they say that we're going to do business via Zoom. That's great. But I believe that we're going to do less business via Zoom, even though we don't have to travel anymore, because it gives people an excuse. And when you get on the screen with somebody that says his camera's broken, his camera's not broken. He doesn't want you to see them. Now, I doubt very much if you interview anybody with a camera broken. In fact, I don't see how it's possible, other than I know there's a lot of audio interviews. But I like in person. I would, if it wasn't for Corona, I would have come for you to interview me at your homes, not your homes, but a studio or wherever you pretend is your home.
And so you gave one of your students a nickname, Black Beauty. What nicknames do you have for us?
Oh, no.
Well, the guy seems very Canadian to me. Soft-spoken. Now, I'm going to say nice, but do you know what the derivative of nice is?
Snowflake?
13th, 14th century idiot. Slow.
Okay.
A nice woman, they used to put a cage over their head with a thing in their mouth so they couldn't talk. Meaning they only used a nice woman for sex. They weren't interested in what they had to say. Now, I used to say years ago that I could probably agree with that definition because there's only 3 women that I could ever have worked for in history: Joan of Arc, Golda Meir, and Maggie Thatcher. Worked for. I've worked with a lot of great gals, but if I had a report to, those are the only 3 gals in history that I could have reported to. And for you, my nickname would have to shrink down, but it's wanna be tough gal.
Be tough gal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Good starting
And
point.
Yeah, good starting point. Okay.
Let's talk about Bitcoin for a few more minutes because we talked about it earlier a little bit, but you mentioned you don't believe in the future of Bitcoin. You also have I've heard you say
No. I didn't say that. And I call it bitfuck. Okay. If the kids knew, like I knew 10, 12 years ago, that the biggest manufacturer of Bitcoin was China, the second biggest was Russia, there would be less interest in it. But a lot of people didn't know that until maybe the last year. If they knew that it's the second biggest cause in China of pollution behind their manufacturing, how many of these millennial would want to own Bitcoin when it was the second biggest reason for pollution in China? Well, it's contrary to all the millennials say they believe in. And 3, more recently, the Chinese government has shut down a good portion of the Bitcoin manufacturing because of the heat they're taking from the world in general because of their pollution. I don't remember if they signed the 2016 Paris Accord for clean air, etc. But everything about Bitcoin, not everything, that's a Trump exaggeration. A lot of things about Bitcoin are contrary to what the millennials believe in. And the reason why, and if they knew, when I talked to this gal from Business Insider, or Insider Business, Business Insider, when I told her, do you know that 95% of Bitcoin is purchased on margin? And she says, who? What? Margin? Leveraged. No. You can buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin for $50,000. It looks like you didn't know that either.
Nope.
Almost all, yeah, okay, well, that's why they call me the $1 trillion man. And that's why there's such deep swings when the price goes up and down. All the little guys, let's say you bought $10,000 worth of Bitcoin and you only put up $500, and the price dropped from 60,000 to 40,000. That means you've got to come up with capital to replace the loss in value of your account. Now some of the millennials learned, because it took a whole 3 years for them, that got wiped out when Bitcoin peaked at $17,000, and I called it December 2017. And now that we've wiped out another 3 years of millennial money. If they knew all that, they wouldn't be buying it.
Yeah.
And if you knew who was behind it, like I know, started it. It's not some Japanese guy in a cave named Yaka Waka Waka Waka. That's a figment of the imagination for the people that started it. Now, who are the two people that would gain the most from dislocating or dislodging the strength of the U.S. dollar? Who are they? China and Russia. Duh. Where is most of it manufactured? China and Russia. Duh. Can't you kids connect the dots? Come on, wannabe. Want to be tough? Can't you?
Let's chat at the castle.
Where is the best place to put your money then if it's not Bitcoin right now? Where are you investing?
Well, my wife and I are in 100% cash, and have been for 5 or 6 years. Because if you're worried about inflation, you're not making enough money. If you're worried about taxes, you're not making enough money. Bunker Hunt, do you know who Bunker Hunt was? Okay, Bunker Hunt was a billionaire partner of mine back when men were men, and there was no internet. And he was asked at a press conference, and aren't you worried about taxes, Mr. Hunt? And he said, if you're worried about taxes, you're not making enough money. And he said, what about inflation, Mr. Hunt? Inflation at that time was about 12 or 14%. So, and he says, if you're worried about it, you're not making enough money. And and we're in cash. Okay, why is Warren Buffett got 50, 60 billion in cash? Why do you think? Why does Microsoft have 30, 40 billion in cash? Why does Apple have 30 or 40 billion in cash?
It's safe and you can use it for opportunities.
Well, but they're not using it, are they?
No.
The only way, does Canada have a deficit like the U.S.?
Not as big, but yeah.
Financial deficit? Okay. The only way for us to get rid of the 7 trillion or whatever the deficit in America, there's only one way. There's only one way to get rid of the deficit here in the UK. And I presume it's only one way to get rid of the deficit in Canada. No administration that's voted into office will have the balls to do what it takes to get rid of all the deficit. And there's only one way to get rid of the deficit. Debase the currency. In other words, make a Canadian dollar. You have 10 Canadian dollars on Friday. On Monday, you have 1 Canadian dollar. That's the only way. Do you think Trudeau is going to do that? No. I happen to know his father. I knew his father, who had a pair.
Okay.
Who had a pair, unlike the current prime minister. Now, the prime minister, he played games on the video. What did he play? What are those? Well, anyway, he was a game guy on video before he became prime minister. That's a hell of a background to become prime minister in one of the biggest countries in the world. But what Now, I've just lined up the dots for you, China and Russia. And some kids that come to the seminar go, what's that have to do with buying Bitcoin? I think maybe they've consumed too much something. And we'll leave it to wannabe tough gal to steer them on the right path.
I'll take it. It's better than Snowflake.
By the way, I was never a snowflake, nothing even remotely close. Our kids aren't snowflakes, although they're from your generation. Our daughter's 35, our son is 38 and 39. Our sons are 38 and 39. But if you just imagine growing up in my house, I mean, I won't say it's impossible, but the probabilities are pretty damn remote. And they're proud of it. I mean, but on the other end of the continuum, guys, I mean, the snowflake kids don't see the downside of being a snowflake. Let's say when you're 60 years old, young lady, when you're 60 years old and you look back at the choices you made, like the one you made last year, as opposed to some of the people that made other choices, probably poor choices, you're going to stand ahead of the pack. But don't do things that you're not excited about, because, the last thing you want is, and I make this speech, I'm a great eulogy giver, and I've given, 16 or 17 eulogies. And before they die, if they ask me to give the eulogy before they die, I go to the hospital and I talk to them about, And every single one that I've talked to, I think 9 of them, they've all whispered in my ear the same thing. The regrets they had for the risks they didn't take. The risk they didn't take. You're not too young to have regrets, but I can tell by your faces you've got a couple. But it's a hell of a thing when you're 75 or 80, and if you're married and you got grandkids all sitting around and they're all saying, sweet dreams, blah, blah, blah. For you to be regretting the risks you didn't take, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. There's not many. Right now, I still plan on going into space before I die. So that's about the only thing that I would have a regret of future things. And my regrets from my past are: 1, I didn't see combat in the Army. Number 2, I told my mother to fuck off the day before she died. I said, "You're not sick, Mom," and she died the next morning. I'd like to have that one back. And the third one is I didn't set my goals high enough. And I set pretty high goals. But I also accomplished them almost overnight. Yeah. If I had known that, I would have obviously set higher goals. But if you would have asked me 25 years ago, would I be sitting in front of 2 kids from Canada, talking about this kind of stuff with a $1 trillion man sign behind me, sitting on my 156-acre estate, getting ready to go have a martini? I don't dress like this all the time, by the way. This is the Guthrie tartan, which I'm honorary head of the clan. This is my Guthrie tartan. This is my at the weekend clothes.
All right.
What else do you want to ask me?
Okay, well, why don't we go through? We got some rapid fire standard life lessons questions for the podcast.
Oh, rapid fire.
Yeah, so if you're okay with that,
okay.
If there's any that you don't want to answer, you can just say skip or pass or something.
Well, it's not likely I won't answer them, but anyway, you might not like my answer, but I'm not likely.
Well, some of them we might have already asked, so we'll skip those 2 ourselves.
Okay.
But,
okay, let's start.
Let's go. Yeah.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Find a mentor that has been where you want to be. Okay. And shoot for the moon. Don't settle for also rans.
What's been your greatest failure?
Oh, probably as a father. As a father. I see my son is a much better dad than I was.
Okay.
But as my father would say, if he were alive, if he were sitting right here, he'd probably be saying, "When this fucking thing over with, son?" But anyway, he used to be criticized for how hard he was on me. by his older brother and sister. He's one of 7. He's the youngest. And my dad's response was almost automatic, and is, how is it working out with your crack daughter? And how's it working out with your imprisoned, convicted felon son in San Quentin, which is a prison? How's your program working out? They were soft on their kids.
Yeah.
And when I asked the seminar kids, if your program had worked out, you wouldn't be here.
Got it.
So, but I would have liked to have been a more kinder or gentler dad. But I'm almost positive I would not have produced the success stories I have in my children. But I told them growing up, I don't want you to love me. I want you to respect me 20 years after I'm dead.
Okay.
Okay.
And your parents wanted you to love them.
Mm-hmm. What does it really take to be a billionaire? What are your habits?
My habits are, I work out, and we have our own gym, which is bigger than most gyms that people belong to. I work out at least 6 days a week. I do cardio. I lift weights still. Part of my workout regimen is I have a hyperbaric chamber that like the super athletes have, where you sit in it, and it pumps oxygen at 6 to 7 times atmospheric pressure. I do that. I don't read books. I don't need motivation, but before seminars, I listen to high performance movies, which shows a lot of human sacrifice, like 300, Zulu. I read, what do you call it? I answer my emails 3 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon after lunch, and once in the evening. I edit and prepare for seminars. And this last seminar, although we didn't use them, Kat had 240 slides that I prepared in the interim, which I didn't realize I asked her to make 240 slides. I talk to mentees rarely, unless they have a world-shattering, death-defying decision to make. And firing your chairman is not death decision. I surround myself with high-performance people. For the most part, even though I beat up my mentees, compared to the rest of the world, it's like high school playing grammar school. They're high school, and the kids around them are grammar school. I spend, before I go to bed, my wife and I watch the news together, have a drink, and then go to sleep. That's more or less. And we haven't traveled in the last year and a half because of Corona. Yeah. That's what I do. But find something you love. Find something you're passionate about. And only surround yourself with other people that are passionate about the same thing. And then if it's work to you, it's not worth pursuing.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself working. I consider myself, this is like a hobby.
Yeah, that's kind of like. Yeah.
And I haven't had to work in 35 years.
Yeah, we love what we do. So.
And people like you, the question I'm most often asked by kids like you is, how do you get up in the morning?
Yeah, that's a good question.
If you had all the money you ever wanted, how would you get up in the morning? What would you do?
It's a great question. If you had to define success in just a few words, what would those words be?
Be the best at what you love to do. Be all you can be.
What is something?
I'm not that religious.
What is something that you believe that other people think is insane? I'm always criticized. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do if you believe in it enough. Now, somebody might tell you can be Prime Minister of Canada. Okay? Well, that's a lie. Okay? I don't even know anything about your background, but I know for a fact. And when when parents tell their kids, you can be anything you want to be, you can be the president of the United States, that's shit. You can be anything you want to be if you've been groomed properly.
Okay? And that means your parents had to know something about building self-esteem, etc. Okay? So when I tell you you can be anything you want to be, I've created billionaires with these two hands, multi-billionaires, from kids. One kid just last year, half-breed, no education, in 7 months, $70 million. Wow. Now, I know that's not a lot of money to you Canadians, but it's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
That's pretty good. Is there a book that you recommend the most?
Well, I mean, everybody says Think and Grow Rich. But I mean, my book, but it's not for sale. I mean, but my audiobook is free. My updated 2018, right, 19 audiobook is free. It's the best bang for your buck, and since it's free, I mean, it encapsulates almost everything we've talked about, and it's free.
Have you listened to that?
My audiobook, your first 100 pages.
Yeah, I have the physical copy, the PDF. Yeah.
Well, no, the audio one is updated from the PDF. Gotcha. It's the updated version.
What would you say is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in the world?
It's easy to get rich. And virtually all the other gurus, although I don't consider them in my league, say it's easy and they upsell you. And then they upsell you, then they say it's even easier with this. And it's not easy. It's ball busting, takes a lot of human sacrifice, but you've got to really want it. I mean, you have to want it more than the air that you breathe. And at the sacrifice of your family, everything. I mean, for 10 years, I mean, I was focused on one thing, to the exclusion of my family, my God, everybody. I mean, it was just one thing I wanted. I wanted to be super wealthy, as I defined back then. And most of my net worth was created during that period of time.
Yeah. One of the top questions we get on YouTube all the time is from people that have trouble with being lazy and procrastinating. They just procrastinate all the time. What advice do you have to them?
Can you see me? Oh! If you're lazy, I mean, there's nothing that can help you. Andrew Carnegie said it best. Tom Watson Sr., the founder of IBM, said it best again. Henry Ford, said it again, and I've said it. If you have to motivate employees, they're not worth having. Nobody ever had to motivate me in my life. And one of my big bosses on Wall Street, who's the godfather to our youngest son, and he hates hearing this, when your dad was 26, 27, 28, we would have to have security drag him out of the office because he'd sleep at his desk for 7 or 8 days. His secretary used to go out and buy him new shirts and underwear, and he'd sponge bath in the men's room. I mean, our kids don't like hearing that story, but it happens to be true. Nobody ever had to motivate me. I've never, ever been corrected for making a mistake in my 51 years in business. Never once. I'm always the most prepared in the room. Always, even now.
So tell us about the Black Swan event.
Okay, about 6 weeks ago, I went online, putting my butt on the line, saying that I predict a Black Swan event's going to come. At first, I thought it was when the Russians allegedly shot at the British Navy, and that turned out to be fake news. But no market goes up forever. And the market will come up with a reason to justify a massive correction. I've been predicting for many, many years it was going to be the debasing of currencies, but Biden's not going to do that. But it's going to be something bad. Now, if the current wave of corona turns out to be, and it's early days yet, or a wave of corona that's yet to come turns out to have like 10 or 20 or 50 times the killer rate in it That'll be the excuse for the market to correct. But when the market corrects, kids, it's going to be 40 to 60%, and most of your little pennies are going to evaporate. And I use the analogy of America. The 401k plans, which are the retirement plans, the self-managed retirement plans, are going to disappear. And Bitcoin won't save you. Nothing's going to save you, because we need a correction. We do. But I'm not sure what it's going to be. But it's going to be, for sure. That's one reason. Debasement of the currencies won't help Sally and I, because all our money will be worth 10%. But it's going to come. Because if you go back and look at history, since the beginning of the first stock exchange in 1535, the first burst was in Amsterdam. There has been every single massive upmarket has had a correction. This one hasn't had one yet, except for the temporary correction for 60, 70 days last year. So now, not just because a lot of the smart money says we are going to have a black swan event. The smart money, and if you read the annual reports and quarterly reports of Warren Buffett and all these big companies, they've taken a lot of money off the table. They've taken a lot of profits waiting for the correction. Warren Buffett took a lot of profits in the quarter ending March 31. So we're going to have one, just as sure as God made green apples, or that I'm wearing red socks. I mean, it's going to happen. And most of the world won't be prepared for it. And a lot of the kids, almost all the kids won't be prepared for it. So, but I'm sure now, wannabe there is going to get prepared. She's going to get prepared.
Yeah, no, our cash is waiting for the big correction, Dan. We'll be waiting for it, and
and you wait for it, and I know you're going to toughen up, and you're going to lead the millennials to glory.
Exactly.
I'm not going to let you down, Dan.
Good. It's a lot harder to let me down now. Now that you've talked to me, it's a lot harder to let me down. And the nail in the coffin would be, someday we'll meet and we'll talk, and there's nothing like me in person. I mean, all the kids that pay to come here have heard almost all the stories online, but it's a lot different hearing it in person. So, but I look forward to your guys' success. And if there's anything else we can do for you, just contact Kat.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thanks so much for joining us, Dan. Any last word?
Well, I haven't had so much fun. I haven't had so much fun since the hogs ate my baby brother.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Where can people find you online?
danpena.co.uk.
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube, Instagram. Yeah.
And as I say on, subscribe to my YouTube, meathead.